So I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to talk about on my podcast this month, but luckily I finished The Bureau about 3 hours ago, and that's fucking weird, so I'm going to talk about that. For those who don't know, it's a XCOM spin-off, where it kind of tries to mix XCOM gameplay with traditional sort of like third-person shooter gameplay. So you run around doing third-person shooting normally, but you also can like control your squad mates and tell them to like go places and like target certain enemies, stuff like that. It's not overly deep in those mechanics, but it was nice. It was okay. Like, I tend to play a game like this every now and again. It's what I buy the Call of Duty games for, where it's a not particularly deep shooting game, which I can not really pay attention to and just go through. It's like a reset every few months, usually once or twice a year I'll go through something like this and just do that. So yeah, so it starts off like pretty normal, like your character is delivering a briefcase and then someone comes to shoot them and then the briefcase explodes and then it's an alien invasion. Like, immediately following that, it's unclear if the two things are related, but kind of are. It's not really clear. Like, the story's a bit all over the place. It's quite buggy, and there's also quite a lot of, like the game was clearly rushed. So there's, like, loads of little things that don't quite make sense. Like, there's times when characters will have dialogue, and then the reply is clearly based on, like, a different line of dialogue. I'm trying to think of a good example. I know there was times when, like, the main character would, like, talk about things. There's a thing called the sleepwalkers, and they're, like, people who've gotten a virus. And it causes them to sort of, like, act like they're sleepwalking, basically, hence the name. So you'll go and have a conversation with someone about them, but this is, like, before they've been named, so you'll just start talking. Then the doctor you're talking to will reply, and then your main character will start calling them sleepwalkers, and it's delivered in such a way as if this is the name that they've always had, or as if the doctor has just given you this information and that's what they're called now. There's another time when you're having a conversation with them, and I think they have these like seeds, they're called seeds, and they grow buildings out of them, okay? So you're having a conversation with someone, they say something like completely innocuous, and then you reply with, "What are you talking about, seeds?" And I'm like, no one said anything about seeds. That isn't a line of dialogue that happened. It's very clearly written as if, like, it feels like they've recorded dialogue as soon as it was written, and then re-recorded other lines, and then just tried to stitch them together without actually making a complete script. So, like, a lot of the dialogue doesn't really make sense. You can kind of get what they're going for, but it's not very clear. Besides that, it's, like, pretty basic. There's only about, I think there's, like, 7 missions and 6 side missions in the entire game. The side missions take about 10 minutes each. The main missions are weirdly long. They're somewhere around 40 minutes long each. It's honestly uncomfortable how long they are. I would rather there be more missions but shorter. Because, like, these missions are like 40 minutes long, but there's times when you'll just walk for like 5 or 10 minutes and not see anything. And then all of a sudden you're in a fight, and then you're in like 4 fights back to back, and then you walk for another 10 minutes and see nothing. It's really fucking weird pacing. So right towards the end of the game, it's like the penultimate mission, you get taken into a cutscene. In the prior mission, it was revealed that, like, the guy you think is the bad guy isn't really the bad guy. There's someone else controlling them, or something like that. Again, it's not relayed in the best way, but it's kind of that. It's not actually that, but it's kind of that, whatever. So at the start of the next mission, it is revealed in a cutscene that you are also controlled by one of these extra beings. They're called ethereals. And your ethereal, and this other guy's ethereal, who you have captured, have a conversation. The other guy's ethereal is the bad one, and yours is the good one. It doesn't actually work like that, but it's easier for me to refer to him this way. So the bad one's talking about how, like, they're like an ancient race, and they just sort of appear in places, and it's rarer for any of them to meet, so they should have a conversation while they've got the chance, but they have things they need to do. And the other one's like, okay, that's fine. Then the bad one's like, so it's really important that what we do now is destroy all of the aliens and all of humanity, because it's really dangerous if this technology gets out. And then the good one goes, no, I want to save humanity. And the bad one goes, you've made a good argument. I agree with you. We should save humanity. At which point, the character you've been playing the entire game gets really angry, breaks out of control of the good alien, and shoots the other one in the head. And at this point, I was like, what? These functional gods, 2 of them have just agreed to help save humanity, and your reply is, I don't like that you're in charge of me, and then you shoot one of them. And it made absolutely no fucking sense whatsoever. Around this time, for reasons I'm not totally clear, you pass out and then wake up. And when you wake up, there is an alien who you have previously captured. It's called the Infiltrator. And your boss is now trying to get them to give you information. And to give you information, they have to connect to this network called Mosaic, which is the thing you've been trying to take down the entire game. So the Infiltrator is like, oh no, don't connect me to Mosaic, because if you connect me, they'll just take control of me again. And he's like, no, we really need you to do it because, it's really important, because otherwise we won't have the information we need. And it doesn't really make sense. They kind of play it off a little bit later as the reason it makes no sense to you, the player, is because the things have happened while the character you were playing has passed out, which has made it make sense in the world logic, but it didn't. It didn't really. So anyway, they plug him in, and he immediately turns evil like he said he would, leads the aliens to your home base, and they start destroying your base. And it's like, this is exactly what he said was going to happen. So this character who you have now become friends with over the course of the game is now evil again for absolutely no reason. So you then start chasing him through the base to get this data off him that you think is important. And while you're chasing him through, the other aliens are invading your base and blowing it up and stuff. There's also lines where they talk about how he's freeing prisoners. And it's like, but he's the only prisoner we have, but apparently the other members of XCOM have been capturing prisoners, except you're also told throughout the story that every other XCOM member is terrible and you're the only good one. So I don't get how you can be simultaneously capturing prisoners but not capturing prisoners. But there's also quick side note, there is an entire thing where there is one character who says, I don't believe there are aliens, and it's there is an alien literally the room next to you, just go and look at him and then come back. But he just refuses to believe that there are aliens that exist. It makes absolutely no fucking sense. Right, anyway, so the Infiltrator is now running around the base, setting free alien prisoners that I didn't know they had. You have to fight your way through, and then the base is being attacked from the outside as well. And then partway through it, he dies, and he makes this comment about how he's always been a slave and he doesn't want to be anymore. And your character goes, oh, I want that too. And it's the fuck are you talking about? You've never been a slave, you just have a job. So you then walk through the next room, and then the player character starts arguing with the ethereal that is in control of you, and then he just runs out of a room and walks up to, he just says goo. It's just a pod full of goo, and he goes, I know you can live in this goo, so either you get out of my head or I will blow us both up. And I'm like, this seems like a very weird reaction to me. I really don't understand why he's like this. It's the main character just suddenly went insane in the past 20 minutes of gameplay, and I have absolutely no idea what happened in between to make this happen. So the one nice thing is you can actually choose at this point whether or not to get out of his head. If you don't get out of his head, he does actually blow up the base. You die and you hit the credits. So at least they stuck that through. I just don't really understand the decision at all, to be honest. What gets to me is the entire way through, this one character has mostly been talking about how the most important thing is saving humanity. And then he finds out that an alien has been controlling him the entire time. He's not even been controlling him, he's just been helping him. He's been giving him extra powers to do extra things with. It's actually the in-universe explanation for how the squad mechanics works, is this alien is doing it for you, which is kind of cool. But yeah, so you find out that happens and then immediately go, oh yeah, humanity doesn't matter now, I need to deal with this first. And it's what? Why is that so important? Can we not deal with the massive alien invasion first, and then maybe deal with the one alien in your head? That is much less of a threat than an entire alien invasion of Earth. But apparently, this guy completely disagrees. So, if you choose to get out of his head at this point, you get out of his head, and then just get in someone else's head anyway. So it doesn't actually do anything. I chose to get inside the woman's head, because she was the only character I cared about. I didn't really care about her, but She was the most interesting of the three options. You had to choose between her, she's called Angela Weaver, Director Falk, and Dr. Weir, I think they're called. It's only been 2 hours and I'm already having trouble remembering the names. She was the one that I chose, because, like, you spend the most time with her and, like, you actually have 1 and a bit missions with her. So I chose to play as her, and she just walks up and knocks the main character out. And that's like it. He then becomes like a minor antagonist. So this leads into the final mission of the game, where you now play as this other character, and everything is functionally the same, like the game plays exactly the same, but you're a different character now for, like, very little reason. The person you were playing tries, like, breaks out of prison, and then, like, shoots a guy that he's been friends with for the entire time, and then comes and, like, chases you down, and then as soon as he finds you, immediately turns to help you anyway. Like, the characterization at this point has made absolutely no sense to me. He makes this weird point of, like, taunting you, and he's like, saving Falk and Weir. And I chose Weir because I like Weir more. But he makes this weird thing of taunting you of, like, oh, well, which one are you going to save? Why, we're only in this position because of you in the first place. He goes from, like, being a completely kind of reasonable character to finding out this one thing and then becoming a massive dick. And I have absolutely no idea why. He goes from, like, doing his best to save humanity to actively going against humanity's best interests for, like, no reason. I chose Weir, like I said. So he goes to help Falk. And it's like, okay, so what's the issue at all? If he had just not turned into a dick for, like, no reason, we just have more people. He could have gone off on his own and done half the mission. You could have done the other half of the mission. It all would have gone better. So anyway, you save Weir. You then leave and go to where Falk was, but Falk's already dead. But this guy's fine. So he says he does his best. He clearly didn't. The entire time, he's been screaming about how much he hates this ethereal. And again, I still don't really get why, but it's the only thing he will talk about, despite the fact that they're literally in the alien base, trying to stop an invasion of Earth. But the only thing he cares about is this giant other alien who is actively helping humanity. So you're like, can we just deal with this afterwards? And he goes, yeah, fine. And then immediately backtracks on what he says, and hunts you down again immediately afterwards. And all that happens is your squad mates just grab his arms, and you get the choice whether to shoot him or not. And then you leave. And that's it. That is that character's resolution. The character's resolution is, we put him back on the ship. It's just like, this character who you have spent, like, 9 of the last 10 hours playing, their resolution is turn evil, and then immediately just get, like, someone ties them up, and that is the end of their story. So you then leave, go and have the boss fight against, like, the like, big boss, except it's not really, because you actually just fight a couple of waves of enemies. There are actual, like, other boss fights during the game, like, there's one where you fight a gunship, there's one where you fight, like, a Titan-class ship, which is just a massive different type of ship, but there's, like, actual boss fights, and then the final boss of the game is, like, 6 waves of normal enemies, and then you press a button. You then get in this machine, which allows you to control all of the aliens, and you tell them all to stop fighting, so they stop fighting, and then that's the end. And then a cutscene, it's not even a cutscene, it's literally just newspaper clippings with someone talking over the top of them. Angela, like, narrates basically what happens to the end of the game, where she just, like, is having a conversation with her bosses, and she's like, oh yeah, we had to kill all of them. And he's like, why? They all surrendered, why would you have to kill all of them? And he's like, oh, we had to kill all of them. I mentioned the Sleepwalker stuff before. During the game, you can discover a cure for that. But then she goes, oh yeah, we had to kill all of those too. Why? You have a cure? And she's like, oh, well, it would have taken too much effort to cure all of them. So what the fuck? You're just murdering, like, thousands of people because it took too much effort to cure them. It's like, why did you even bother spending all of your time developing a cure if you're just going to give up straight away? And then they just sort of, like, go, bye. Like, it's just really weird. Like, the game just sort of ends at that point. Like, there is, like, nothing after that. Like, she talks about how they had to kill all of the aliens, they killed all of the sleepwalkers, and then, like, that was, like, it. That was, like, the end of the game at that point. I feel like they had ideas for like cool places they could have gone with this story. Because like, when they introduced the idea of ethereal, it's like the enemy character is like addressing the player, and you kind of like, oh, like it's talking to me, the player, controlling this character the entire time. And it's like kind of interesting. And then it's like the character is fighting against the player, which is again kind of interesting. Like it could go places, and then they immediately just backtrack on it. Like, I feel like it could have gone, like, cool places. Like there's that bit in God of War, the 2018 one, where Atreus, like, starts disobeying your commands. And that's, like, kind of interesting, and I feel like they could have done something like that in this. But instead, it's just, like, 3 cutscenes. Then a guy plants a bomb, and then you choose a different host immediately, and then control the rest of the game as normal. Part of me is like, oh, it's a shame, because they clearly had plans that they couldn't follow through, probably for, like, budgetary reasons or whatever. But part of me is also like, yeah, it's just bad. Like, part of me thinks it's kind of sad, and the other part of me thinks it's just kind of bad. Other than that, I've spent pretty much the entire last month playing through all of the SteamWorld games. So, I previously played the original SteamWorld Dig, I think around the time of release. I had it on the Vita, and I really enjoyed it. And I finished that, and I like really liked it, and I always kind of wanted to get into the other games. But for one thing, like the change in art style always put me off. I wasn't a big fan of it. Because each game's got like a little bit of a different art style, but it just like, it's a little bit, something about it is just like a bit uncomfortable for me. Like Heist looks nice, but I'm not a big fan of the art style for Dig 2. But anyway, so I tried Heist like a couple of years ago, I think it was. It was either last year or the year before. And I liked it, but I didn't get that far in. But this year I decided to play some more of them, so I bought the DLC for that. And then I bought Dig 2 and Quest. It was late last month when I put up the videos for Dig 2 and Quest. And then I basically just played Dig 2 the entire of the way through until I finished it. And then as soon as I finished that, went back and started Quest. I went through all of that. Oh no, actually, sorry. Between those two, I finished Heist. And then I went through and finished all of Quest. And I really like the SteamWorld games. They're all really good. I find like the Dig games quite relaxing because I quite like just going around and digging for stuff. Heist was like a really nice tactics game, tactical game that I didn't find too hard. Like it was tough in some places, but like I enjoyed it the entire time. And then Quest is the one of them that I like the least, but I still really like it. It's like, I think they're all like 8, but Quest is a lower 8, if you get what I mean. Like, I'd rate them all the same, but like there are bits in Quest that I like more, but bits in it I dislike more as well. Like, Quest has very weird pacing. I think there was 19 missions in Quest. And about half of them are close to an hour long each. And then the other half of them are somewhere between 10 and 15 minutes long each. And it's very weird because, for one thing, it's really hard to tell which you're going to get when you start playing. So sometimes you'll sit down for a session and just be like, okay, I want to do a bit. And then you'll end up playing like 6 chapters. And you're like, what the fuck? And then other times you'll sit down and be like, I want to do a lot. And you'll do 1 mission. Like, I remember, I think it was something like chapter 4 took me an hour and a half. And I think chapter 17 also took me about an hour and a half. And I'm like, that's too long for 1 chapter. Especially when there's only like... It does actually save every time you like leave or enter a room, I think. But there's only actual, like, in terms of actual save points, there's only like 2 in each chapter. There's like 1 near the start and 1 near the end. The pacing is just very strange to me. Especially because, like, a lot of the rooms can be kind of empty. Like, sometimes you'll have, like, a fight in each room. But then as soon as you do that fight, you've just got, like, 3 rooms back to back that'll be empty, and you just walk through them. And it's like, those rooms don't really need to be there then, do they? And it's also be nice if there was some way of, like, backtracking faster, because there's a lot of times when it's, like, getting a key for a door, say. So you'll walk through to find the key, kill everything on the way, and then you'll have the key, and it's just a matter of walking back again. The enemies only respawn when you save, so there's nothing there. So it's just walking back through like 10 rooms of nothingness, and you move very slowly. That's actually one other thing that bothers me. The movement I found easier with the mouse, like you have to like swing your sword to start combat. Well, it's more advantageous to do that. It doesn't like work very well with a mouse. That works better on the keyboard. So you're like constantly switching between mouse and keyboard with what you use, and especially in combat. In combat, I only used a mouse. But the reason I bring it up is because like there are different like prompts on the screen depending on which setup you're using. So they're like, if you're constantly flicking between them, the prompts on the screen will flicker constantly between the keyboard prompts and the mouse prompts, and it's really annoying. In terms of what the game actually is, though, it's this like deck building RPG. So like you can run around the map and clear the rooms. Like you'll find like chests with like gold and like weapons and stuff in them. But the weapons just like give like modifiers to the stuff that you do, really. Like the real damage comes from the cards. The way it works is you find cards and you put them in your deck, and you have to have 8 cards in your deck, and there are 3 characters. So you have a total of like 24 cards. And you get a selection of cards at the start, and you can play 3 cards per turn, and that's it. So you just choose your cards and what you get to play, and like the way I had it set up was I had a support character and then the mage character, because it's also a different form of support. One is like support like heals, and the other is support like buffs. And then my main character was doing damage. You can play like a blue spell and a green spell and a red spell, but if you play 3 spells of the same type, then that character gets like an extra attack or an extra... Like in the terms of the magic one, she does a thing where like if you play 3 of her spells in a row, she gets a 4th spell which blocks damage for the entire team. That's how I had it set up for her. There were actual different ones you can choose for each character, but that's how I liked her to be set up. So yeah, it's like mostly a matter of just like choosing what cards to play at the best time and stuff. Like I'm like oversimplifying all of it because like it's actually quite complex, but it's really fun. And like playing a normal card gives you mana to play better cards, basically. So every 1 normal card you play gives you like 1. They're like little gears, little cogs. Gives you like 1 cog, and then better cards will cost cogs to use. So the way I used to do it was I would like use all my low level cards. I would play like 3 low level blue cards to build up my cogs and to get the defense buff on all my characters, and then spend all of those cogs on my red character who did tons of damage in like a single hit. Because like by the end of the game you're hitting for like thousands of damage per turn. It's like really fun. The only other thing I will say is the final boss is really good, but takes a really long time. It's like a weirdly long boss because it has like multiple phases, and in certain phases they can't be damaged, so you have to like damage their arms to get their body to be damaged. And it has those mini phases in between actual larger phases. So it's got like 3 phases of like different... It's not even different behaviors, it just like moves location. It has 3 different phases of like locations interspersed with these mini phases where it can't be damaged and you have to damage different parts of it, and it has like a ridiculous amount of health. I think it's the only enemy in the game that... I might be talking like totally wrong there. I'm trying to think. I'm sure you could see other enemies' health, but this one you just get like a bar. By which I mean like the other enemies, you can actually see the numbers of how much health they've got, whereas with this enemy you can only see a red bar. It's a little bit hard to gauge like how long it's going to take because of that. Because like say you're doing like 4,000 damage a turn, but it's got 400,000 health. That's going to take forever, and you don't actually know. Other than that though, it was really good. The only other complaint I have about it is that, and it's a little bit of a spoiler, so if you don't want to hear technical spoilers on SteamWorld games, go away for like a minute. It's not really that big of a deal. All the other SteamWorld games tie into one another and have like the same end boss, and this one doesn't, and it's just kind of a shame. I thought it would have made like a good prequel or something, but it doesn't. Maybe it does and I just missed it, but I had like a read about it afterwards and I couldn't find anything. So besides that though, I did really like it. I really like all of them. And now the only SteamWorld game I haven't finished is the one that was on the DSi. So I would very much like it if... Actually, I was going to say Image and Form, but as of about 3 days ago, they're no longer called that. It's Thunderful. They got fully merged within Thunderful now. They used to be kind of like their own sub-team, but now they're fully merged within Thunderful now, so like it if they would get working on a remake of the DSi game, just so I can finish that as well. I think other than that, I've not really done a whole lot during the last month. There's been some issues with my videos. Not really with the videos, just with me. Like, I'm having a really hard time writing stuff again, which is why there was no, like, proper scripted video this month. The issue with that is, I just didn't finish the script. I got about 60-70% of the way through it, and I just didn't get the last bit of it done, and I wouldn't have, even if I had managed to finish the script, I wouldn't have enough time to, like, record and edit and do everything else to it by the time it needed to be out. And it's kind of because of that I'm, like, actually debating not doing those scripted videos anymore. And it's not really not doing them, but it's more like forcing myself to do them each month is, like, stressing me out. And I haven't done it for the last 2 months, obviously. The video I'm writing is actually about my video writing process. Because it was the only thing I could think of at the time. And part of it I talk about in there is that when I'm really passionate about a video, I find it really easy to write. When I'm not really passionate about a video, I find it really difficult. And making myself do it each month means that I'm, like, choosing topics that I feel like I can get done, but not that I particularly care about. And it means that, like, I feel like they'd, like, tend to be worse. I don't think they're, like, bad or anything, but I don't feel like those videos are as good as they could be, and I also feel like I'm, like, stressing myself out over them. So I've not made a decision yet, really, but I'm kind of debating cutting back on the, like, longer scripted videos, which granted aren't coming out all that frequently anyway, in favour of something else that I would replace them with, but I'm going to make some decisions about that next month, so I'll talk about it then. The only other thing is I had my first vaccine now, which is nice. I never actually heard from my doctors. I had to go to a walk-in place for it, but not a big deal. I feel fine. I'm going to have my second one in 2 or 3 weeks, something like that. Hopefully it doesn't affect anything. I know the second one's supposed to be worse, which means I might end up, like, cancelling a stream for it or something, but hopefully I'll be okay. It does mean I can, like, feel a bit more comfortable going outside. I'm still going to keep wearing my mask, but I just really miss going out for food. Going out for food and, like, travelling. Like, when I say travelling, I mean, like, going abroad and stuff. And obviously I still can't do that, even if I am fully vaccinated, so. But those are the two things I, like, really miss. Like, I've not actually been that bad, because, like, largely it hasn't affected my life. Like, even before this, I was inside all the time, so it's not really a big deal, but I used to go out for food a lot. And I've not been able to. And I, like, really miss it. I, like, really miss getting, like, burritos and stuff. So in terms of the channel, since last podcast, I have finished my Yakuza 0 LP. So that is still going to be going up on the channel until September, but I've finished recording it now, which is very nice. Like, I was very happy with that. I didn't do all of the side quests, I'll tell you now, because a lot of the side quests that I had left to do were, like, the dancing ones, which I didn't enjoy. I just don't enjoy the dancing, and I couldn't do the racing one either. And I was just like, I just really wanted to get the story finished because it was really good. And I was really happy with finishing it. And I would like to play more Yakuza games, but I'm going to leave it for a bit first. I want to get into another one straight after finishing that. I think it took me around 80 hours in the end. So the idea of doing another one of those straight away is not the most appealing. As much as I would like to play it, I think I'd burn out if I did actually start. My Monster Hunter LP is still going. I'm still recording that. I think I'm recorded up to episode 37, 38 now, which is about August time. Doing okay. I've been doing it a little bit different now than I used to. I used to just, like, record it every day. I'm now not recording every day because, for one thing, I have so many episodes, like, recorded already that it's not been necessary. But what I've been doing instead is I've been recording until I, like, hit new monsters. And then as soon as I hit a new monster, I will stop recording until I've, like, grinded that monster out. So I've been, like, between sessions, been going through and getting, like, every single set. I have, like, almost all of them that I've unlocked so far. Today I fought a Jura, and I felt really bad, but you'll have to watch the video to find out why. That'll be coming out at, like, the start of August, though, so you've got a bit of a wait. Final Fantasy is going really well, and I really want to play more of it. And to that end, I have a thing. So I put up a poll on Patreon the other day, and I was talking about changing my stream setup. So I like streaming, but I like it mostly when people come. And people tend to come to my Final Fantasy streams more than anything else, it seems. So, as of next month, I'm not going to be streaming the variety games anymore. I'm just going to be streaming Final Fantasy every day. To my patrons specifically, there were two options on the poll. One of them was to keep the times the same as they are now, but only play Final Fantasy. And the other one was to move all of my streams earlier in the day and only play Final Fantasy. So both of those were very close to one another. I have a preference for one, but that wasn't the one that won, technically. So because of that, what I'm actually going to do is both. That does not mean I'm going to be doing 2 streams a day. What it means is, for the first 2 weeks of next month, I'm going to try out the way that won on the poll, which is keep the times at the same, which means 2 streams a week at 12 and 3 streams a week at 8. One of the reasons I want to move it earlier overall is because it gives me more time to stream, I won't be as tired, and it's like harder to mess up. By which I mean, like, if food's late, it messes up my time for streaming. And obviously I don't have to worry about that if I'm streaming earlier in the day. But the option that won was to keep the time the same. So for the first 2 weeks, I will keep my times the same. And I will stream just Final Fantasy, and I'll see how that goes. If that goes really well, then we'll keep it like that. My second 2 weeks of next month, I'm going to move all of my streams earlier, and we'll see how that goes. At the end of the month, I'll compare them, and honestly probably still go with the earlier times overall, but I'll see. Just in case one of them does, like, really well. So, my final variety stream is going to be on Monday. I usually don't do this, because, like, technically it's what my patrons pay for, but it was given to me as a gift, so I figured I'd use it as my final game, so I'm actually just going to tell you what game I'm doing. I'm going to be doing Oddworld Stranger's Wrath HD, because people told me I should play it, and then one of my patrons gave it to me, so thanks for that coin. Yeah, so I'll be doing that, and that is going to be my last, like, variety stream, at least for the foreseeable future. I'm going to play Final Fantasy for a while, probably until I either get tired of it, or I reach the end of the trial. I don't know which one of those is going to happen first. If it's just a matter of I get tired of it, then I might bring the variety streams back. If it's a matter of I finish the free trial, then I have to decide what to do. One of the issues is I can't really afford to be doing the actual game. I realise that might seem weird. It's like, why don't I use my Patreon money to do that? Because my Patreon money goes on bills. The idea is my Patreon money goes on bills. Either I would need, like, people to donate to me on Twitch and I could use that money, or I can get to $720 a month on Patreon and I can use that extra money. Like, you get what I mean. Like, I'm not saying, like, people should do that. I'm saying, like, that's the situation that I'd have to be in to make it so that I could afford to do it at this moment. If it really comes to it, I'll probably just buy it anyway, but I'm going to have to, like, work that into my budget if it gets to that point, so I'm trying to ride out the free version for as long as possible. So if you particularly like that game, or you've come to any of my other, like, variety streams and want to come and say hello before I finish doing them forever, well, not forever, but for a while, or if you just feel like it, you can come to that on Monday. It's Monday night at 8 PM BST, which is, 7 UTC, which is whatever your time zone is. I don't know, because I don't know where you are. There will be another Patreon poll next month talking about the things that I'm thinking of replacing my scripted videos with, just to see if people are interested in them. I hope they are. I hope I can stick to those a bit easier than I can my scripted videos, but we'll see. So yeah, I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about. I did have, like, one other thing, but it really doesn't make very much sense. I have this, like, theory. I don't know if you've noticed, but all of the PlayStation ports to PC have been, like, really fucking bad. So Death Stranding wasn't, but Death Stranding also wasn't actually handled by Sony. All of the PlayStation published games on PC seem to be terrible. The port for Horizon Zero Dawn was, like, kind of broken. Like, especially on first release. It kept, like, breaking, and it turns out that the people that got to port it just weren't very good, and Guerrilla had to come in and fix it themselves. And then Days Gone has, well, it's just not a very good game to begin with, is it? But it also has that keylogger and, like, a lot of privacy issues, which PlayStation have said is to stop people hacking the game that no one fucking cares about. Like, yeah, I know some people like it, but you get what I mean. Like, it's really not as big of a deal as they're making it out to be, but they've got, like fucking keyloggers in it and shit. Like, I'm paraphrasing, I don't know the exact situation, but you get what I'm saying. I have this theory that what Sony are doing is they're making games that people want to play, as you would expect of a game company, then porting them to PC, but making them intentionally bad. They're putting like intentionally bad ports of their games on PC, so that when people go, I really wanted to play this game, and you put it on PC but it's bad, they can be like, oh well, the real way to play it is on PlayStation 4, or now on the PlayStation 5, and it's like, it's all a ploy. So if the next port that they do, which we don't know what it is yet, but if they do another PC port, and that one is also broken, that just lends credence to my theory. I think they're intentionally sabotaging their own PC ports to give people a taste of the game that they want, but give it them in an inherently inferior way to force them to try and buy PlayStation. Like, obviously the idea was always that, like with Horizon especially, the idea was always, this is a PlayStation game, here is the PlayStation game you wanted. It's like 4 years after it originally came out, but there's also a new one coming out, which you will only be able to play on the PS5. Like, it's obviously just sort of like giving people a little bit of what they want to try and like port them over into PlayStation sales anyway. I think they're trying to do it by making a bad version of a good thing to show, well, the better version is here. Anyway, that's like just my conspiracy. I wouldn't actually like to believe it was true. I want to believe it's not true. Part of me believes it's true anyway, but that's perhaps cynical. Anyway, after that really is everything. So, I can do my outro. Special thanks to all my patrons. You can join them over at patreon.com/Holden Gatsby, and for $1 a month you'll get to see what I'm working on early. You can get exclusive roles in my Discord, along with other rewards I might think of. You can also just follow me there if you want to for free, as it's probably the best place to see all of my content as soon as it's available. There's links to the Patreon, along with my Discord, Twitter, Twitch, and all of the other podcast platforms in the description for this episode. Finally, don't forget you can email me using podencastby@gmail.com if you've got anything you want to say. Thanks for sticking around. Bye. Special thanks to my patrons, Heaven Over Hell, Justin Wood, Hobbs, Koopy Vegeta, Gunrunner, Water, and Bad. You can join my patrons at patreon.com/Holden Gatsby, follow me on Twitter @Holden Gatsby, and follow my Twitch at twitch.tv/Holden Gatsby. Don't forget to subscribe to both of my channels. Thanks for watching. Bye.